How's everyone doing today? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 92. Today, my special guest is Justin Smith from the pummeling hardcore band Graf Orlock. Also, Ghostlimb, he's in a band called Sweat. Dangers, co-founder of Vitriol Records. Super pumped to talk to him. Can't wait to hear about the LA scene. And I got you right now. Let's throw the invite at you, Justin. Hold on one sec. We got going here. Justin, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we made it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. I want to thank you again, and I appreciate your time on a Sunday. I don't know if you're a family man like me, but I mean, asking people on Sundays is kind of taxing in at times. So
No, it's okay.
thank you again.
It's always cool to if people are interested in talking, that's always cool. I have several dogs, no children, so always good.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. I have 3 dogs.
Yes, 3 dogs.
Yeah. Usually when I start these conversations, I usually ask, what were you listening to as a kid, and what got you into the punk hardcore scene? Like, what were you kind of listening to as a young child, and then what got you into the punk and hardcore? What bands and what kind of opened up your eyes?
When I was really young, the things that I was like exposed to were basically like Sabbath for my dad, Dylan. He liked Dylan a lot. My mom listened to only like oldies stuff. So in LA, in and around LA, there's this radio station called, I don't remember what it was called, but it was only like at the time in the 80s, oldies were 50s, 60s stuff, right? So I listened to a lot of that, and I still like from that stuff like Phil Spector shit and other types of I don't know, soul stuff, or even like the Beach Boys stuff, like old kind of pop harmony things. But as I got older, I have one older brother. He's 4 years older than me. He started listening to Metallica when I was like maybe in 5th grade, and I got a little bit into that, and that like became my band for a long time. But I remember there was a mall that I used to ride my bike to, and I would like buy a tape once a week. I'd buy a tape, and I had gotten like the whatever tape single was. It was like Nothing Else Matters, or Sabbath True from the Black Album, and on the back of it they had covered Last Crest Green Hell, and I'd never heard. And at that time, I think Danzig was around, like Thrall Demon Sweat Live was out, and like Mother had just become big again, but not off the first Danzig record. So I bought Earth AD, the tape, and I got in. That was like my entryway into kind of like punk and hardcore. I love things about metal, but I don't like the metal scene per se. I like the ethics and the ideas of punk and hardcore a million times more, which is a thing that, even if it sounds like metal, always kept me interested in hardcore, I guess, whatever it would be. But from there, I went to like, in junior high, was like Minor Threat, and I was listening to Crass and a bunch of other things that were more about idea-based things, and I got really into like, so the heavier stuff appealed to me that was about ideas. Like I liked old Earth Crisis stuff because they were like really hardline about certain ideas,
Yeah.
So that was my entryway, so to speak, I guess.
Nice. When you were younger, did you ever get, I know you mentioned Metallica, but was the LA like thrash scene like a little bit a part of your upbringing, with like Exodus and other bands like that were playing in LA?
I never really went to those shows when I was a kid. Like the ones that were accessible to me were like, I remember when I was maybe in 7th grade, they used to have like these punk matinees at this pool hall on Sundays, and my brother would take me to shows sometimes, but we went and saw like the big shows we went to were like White Zombie or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And and the hardcore shows were always so much easier to go to. So because they were just around all the time, especially at that point in the early 90s and you know, like in and around LA, Orange County and LA, there was shows every day, and it was just really weird. I was talking to Todd, who he runs Recess Records, and he was in FYP and a bunch of other bands. And like at that point in the early '90s, just like every show, there were like 400 people at for some reason. Like everyone was into
Yeah.
music. I mean, I guess you on a larger context, that's when Nirvana and all that shit was happening. All those bands were being signed, and even like all the Rocket from the Crypt bands were being signed to things. You know, it's like, but so I didn't really get into like into like the thrash scene because I feel like a lot of it was like in LA, like in downtown and some of those other places. I couldn't drive; I was too little.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it took me a while.
Yeah. Speaking in the '90s, it
Before I
was
could
the kind of sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. In the
No,
'90s
go ahead.
here, up in New Hampshire, I mean, New Hampshire is a very small state. You wouldn't think it had much of a scene. And the like mid to late '90s, there was like a huge scene up and around like these towns like Manchester and Rochester and Concord up in New Hampshire. And like you said, there was hundreds of kids at that time in the '90s. I mean, there's barely any shows now, but New Hampshire was really thriving at that time, and it must have been that era in every state where, you know, kids were
Yeah.
involved in the scene a lot.
Even up to like the late '90s, early 2000s, like the Orange County scene was just like massive. There were shows all the time. You know, say what you will about what bands came out of it, but there's like, it was just really big all the time, and that's kind of where I came up playing shows in that kind of like scene because there's so much. You know, it's ebbed and flows over time about like how many shows there are or like what venues exist, especially, you know, in an American sense, like any venue that's not legit gets shut down pretty quick. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know, and there were a lot of like smaller DIY places that I kind of grew up in that were fundamental to like shaping my idea of what I thought shows should be like or how they should be run or how money should be handled with shows. And that was always kind of my gripe with the metal scene because it was like
Yeah.
totally, for the most part, ignored socioeconomics. It was just some weird business. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff that I like. There's a place down here in Santa Ana called Coos Cafe, and it was a house like just in the middle of Santa Ana that had a living room that they would do shows in. It was like, and they would sell coffee there. And that's like where I first really started going to like DIY shows. And the first place I played, the first show I ever played was there in like at some point in '99. So yeah, I don't know. I guess where you kind of grow up in some of those things shapes your view of how you think things should work or what works or what doesn't work.
Yeah, definitely. What were some of the bands back then when you were going to shows that impressed you? Like, who were the bands that you wanted to go see and kind of had an impression on
Oh
you
my
back
God.
then in that LA scene?
I gotta think for a second. I don't know. I also listened to a weird mix of stuff when I was growing up. So, you know, like it was in the wake, you know, of like the end of Born Against and those bands that I always loved. Like it was kind of and things related to those bands and some Richmond bands I liked a lot. And then also I love, you know, like a lot of the straight up hardcore bands that were around at that point that were, or like there was some more thrashy stuff coming from this area. I never really got into like the bands that were really big, and I grew up in Orange County. The bands that were really big over here were kind of the like kind of fashion-y bands that none of our bands ever really fit into because we're a bunch of ugly pricks, you know, like playing different types of stuff. I mean, so I like a mix of those things. There's this band from down here called Treadwell that I always loved. I loved like the Melodicism of Shylood. I liked a whole bunch of different things. And then at the same time, you know, like just rock and roll stuff was always cool to me. Maybe out of the lineage of the old kind of like oldies stuff that I grew up on.
Yeah. Now were
Who
you
knows?
listening to the San Diego scene at that time too, with like the Gravity Records stuff and all the stuff that was coming out of San Diego? Did you go down there and see any shows or?
It took me maybe until like 2000-ish maybe the early 2000s before like 2001 was the first time I played in San Diego at the Che Cafe, which was kind of like the spot for all of our bands, particularly Graf Orlock. We would play there a lot, and Ghostlimb and Dangers eventually played there a lot. And that to me was kind of like a version of the stuff up here that we were doing in the venues up here. Some of the Gravity stuff was a little bit noisy for me at times, coming from a guitar player perspective. I thought it was creative, but I liked the Swami bands. Like I like Drive Like Jehu, and I like those types of bands, and all the bands that have come out of Swami Records stuff eventually in the San Diego scene. That was kind of like more my style down there. But we would go and see bands play down there when we could. And now, I mean, I have a lot of friends down there, and it makes a lot more sense to me now than when I was a kid. You know, like some of the stuff, it takes a minute to like work through your brain, and you're like, oh, I actually like that now.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when were you interested in picking up a guitar when you were young? What age were you when you picked up a guitar? Why did that? Why was it alluring to you to play guitar?
My dad played a little bit of guitar when I was a kid, but like when I was 6, I had this little acoustic guitar. Like my brother had one too. He's 4 years older, so I'm 40 now. And at the point in time when it was a weird dynamic, I think, especially now in like my job, I think it confuses people because there's an assumption that like if dudes look a certain way, they like certain sports and things like that. And I was just not a sports person. Like my mom and my brother really like sports. My dad hates sports, so we kind of had this like bifurcation. But so when I was younger, when it came time, I guess that age when people would start taking sports more seriously, like I would mess around in the street and things like that. I just started playing guitar. So I was maybe 11. I was probably 11. And the first song that I learned Jump in the Fire from Kill 'Em All, so my brother could play the solo over it. I like played the riff. And then maybe, I don't know how old you are in junior high, but we tried to mess around with bands in junior high and beginning of high school, and I was never really in a proper band that played shows until I was like almost 17. But we would play and mess around. But yeah, I basically started playing when I was then and didn't stop. And you could debate whether it's made my life better or ruined it, but I have not stopped playing guitar since.
So what was that first band that you actually played shows? What was the name of that band?
Okay, maybe like a little bit of explanation here. The drummer of Graf Orlock, his name's Adam, and we have always done the band together. It was like our band. We started it together. Next year will be 20 years since that happened. And before that, we were in this band for a couple of years called As Hope Dies. That was more like metallic, more kind of like At the Gates type of stuff. And it was called In Reply before that. So, and that was more kind of it was a hardcore band. It was more like Shy Ludi, still metallic. And then later when the band name changed. So it was that band. It was eventually called As Hope Dies, which lasted until October of 03. And the first Warlock show was December of 03. So we did that, and we actually toured the US a couple times and did some things, put out a couple records. But maybe, from the time I was 17 till, I guess 21, we did that.
Yeah.
And then we started Warlock in the wake of it. And that was really a response to the melodicism of Warlock was a response to playing a lot of like kind of melodic metallic stuff, which is like cool. I liked it. I liked, At the Gates, Haunted, and those types of things always sounded cool.
Yeah.
Melodically, and they're cool. It's fun to play and stuff, but I felt kind of like trapped with it. So we went the total opposite direction to make some annoying ass band, which was Graf Orlock. So, and then in and out, I mean, there's always been, I've always, maybe since 2008, since I joined Dangers, was in 3 bands or so, always. And then there are other bands that I would play in. So, like, Graf Orlock, Ghostland, and Dangers have always been around since at least maybe 05. And Warlock started at the end of 03. So those bands I've always been in since then, and then other bands, like, additionally.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, yeah. I was just saying, like, you're one of the busiest guys in the scene. I mean, you play in so many bands, and on top of the the record company, and now, do you do the designs for the merch for Graf Orlock? Is that you too,
No,
or is that
that's Adam. That's the drummer. Adam has
oh,
like always done the art for uh all. I mean, except here and there when because we've had like a million shirts, except here and there, like when some of our friends would do a design, which there are a few of those. Adam, for the
yeah,
most part, has always done that stuff. He's always done the record layouts. He's done basically everything for the label in regards to design. He's done all the
yeah,
Ghostland layouts. He's done like he's done some that like aided in some of the dangerous stuff. He's done a lot of stuff, but mostly it's always the graphic kind of like aesthetic sensibility was his. With the Ghostlimb stuff, I might have like there's some older records like I had an idea and I couldn't really execute it, or
yeah,
and some of the records he just did them like so he always did the art stuff, and then in terms of the label I always just like ran stuff, which realistically is just mailing things for the most part, like he's when it comes to putting out records, I'm almost at 60 I guess releases since 2009, but like
yeah,
unless you're actively working on like PR or stuff for a record, it's like it's
yeah.
not there's not that much you're doing except answering emails and mailing stuff to people. But uh so I basically always ran that side of it and he did the art stuff.
Nice, nice. Speaking of that, I have a few things to just show you because like the merch game is on lock, and I've accumulated quite a bit of stuff over the years. So first off, I have the old Graf
Oh shit,
Orlock hoodie with the.
that's a corpse pile hoodie.
So I have
Yeah,
that.
there's
Then I
there's
have.
a there's a bunch of funny dead there's actually a bunch of funny dead bodies in there if you look at it. There's like Princess Di's in there and
Oh, really?
Dimebag Darrell's in there. Yeah.
Now I'm gonna really have to look at it. I have this one.
Oh, see that one's the glow in the dark from dusk till dawn. That was
Yeah,
I think done by Mike Wolberg that works at he works for Decibel, does the design for Decibel stuff.
yeah, yeah.
He
But
he did he did a couple shirts.
this
That's
one.
cool. Oh shit. Yeah, that was that's old as all hell. That's probably like that's maybe 2007, maybe
um,
2008.
I got this one.
Oh, that's one of my favorite ones forever. That's like that's a T2 one, but I think the city is Philly on accident.
Oh, really?
But
No kidding.
yeah, but that was I think Adam drew that one. It's super funny. If
And
if shirts,
of course.
oh
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead. Of course, I have
the
the
Quado one.
classic. Yeah.
That's so gross. There's
So yeah,
I love that.
like
That shit's so funny.
like I said, the merch game is on lock. I mean, every time I saw a shirt, I was like, oh, I got to get it. Or when I saw you guys up in Derry, New Hampshire, I think I bought 2 of these shirts there.
That was
That
the one that video was from. That was in '07
yeah,
summer. Yeah, that was
'06.
'06. Oh yeah, that was with Comandre in '06.
Yeah,
Damn, that was a minute ago.
yeah,
To me, the shirts and stuff. I mean, even with the records, there's a record that's coming out like an EP eventually, needs to go to press soon. Like, there's not really gonna be any more Gorlock records, I don't think. But this one, we're sorting out the layout and stuff for it. Most of the stuff is like the Doombox is just a stupid idea that Adam made like a technical drawing for, and then the plant was able to do it. And like other
yeah,
stuff, it's like the idea kind of, especially when having or like putting out yourself, typically the problem is that people they like won't go far enough. They'll just be like, oh, well, it'd be cool just to have a record come out. Like, that's cool. But also it's like you could do something within those parameters that is really sick and it won't cost that much money. And, it might cost less than doing a glue jacket,
yeah,
like
yeah,
we did this Crime Traveler record that's packaged in like a newspaper.
mm-hmm.
And it took like 3 months to write the newspaper, but in the end, the layout costs less. It looks cooler and it costs less than doing something normal because it's just a newspaper. It's like, I guess the idea, you got to get the idea out there, and than try to do it. We did this like, pop-ups and various other shit, die cut stuff.
Yeah.
This last record that came out, Examination of Violent Cinema, in 2019, it's sealed on all sides, so you have to like rip the autopsy corpse open to get the record out. It's like perforated. Like, I don't know, why not?
Yeah.
It's funny, it gets people say like, wait a second, I got to rip this thing open to like get the record out. You're like, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's interactive and stupid. I don't know, like all the other records too. It's like the Dangerous stuff has here and there has like had a big poster layout, and we did different stuff for it. The Ghostlimb stuff is a lot of die cuts and things. Like, I don't know, within the parameters of a normal layout you can do a lot of things, and that's like, I just had the feeling that normally people that work with labels have them, if they have those types of ideas, the labels would tell them no. And like, even back in the day when we were doing stuff with other labels, they would be like, that's probably too expensive. I'd be like, fuck that, we'll just do it. And then I just have to walk into my garage to get the records. I don't have to mail it, like asking anyone to mail me a box of records and all that. I mean, in the end, it's more work, but also you don't really have to deal with anybody. It's just you and the people that record it, and that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, the last two singles that Graf did, that's like a plexi, like how was that released?
It was, so Decibel Magazine does in the subscriptions, they have like a flexi record that's like a single, and we just did one of those before the Sweat LP came out, for the single for the Sweat record, but like it comes with those. So, and I've known those people forever at Decibel, and they've been super supportive forever, and which is cool because we were always a mega outlier in dealing with Decibel. But they would even, like, they would review Ghostland records, they would review always do like Graf stuff. They were always super supportive, and I still talk to many of the people. We just thought it was cool because we recorded in 2019. We recorded 7 songs, and one we made like a stupid video out of, which was awesome. One we made that, like 2 of the songs went on that, and then 5 are going on an EP that's going to come out soon. It's just taken forever, and in the interim, the world exploded. But it was funny because it was only in a flexi. I mean, it's online, you can listen to it, but it's not like you can't really get it physically, which is extra funny. I mean, I have some if you want one.
No, I mean, those 2 songs are awesome. Violent Ultimatum of Local Dojo is so good. And what's the bleak news report or like those songs are brutal. Those songs are so good.
That's the same session that like the last EP is from, that's about to come out. And I think in a really funny way, it's like probably some of the most like realized stuff as a band that we've ever done. Like I just think we recorded them live, and we recorded them with my friend Jack at Atomic Garden up north that used to play in Comadre also. And we record most of the records now. We did the Sweat record, we did the last Dangerous record there, we did all the Ghostlimb records since 2009. Like, it just sounds brutal. And like the songs that are coming out, I'm kind of stoked for people to hear, because they're like, it's part of that session and they're nasty.
Yeah, if it's anything like those two songs on that plexi, it's unbelievable. So heavy, and when I heard it, I was like, whoa, this stuff is so good. Like, I'm like 50 years old, so obviously like the Destination, like Time albums are my favorite era, like just because of that's when I first kind of started getting into you guys and stuff like that. But listening to those new songs, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is like really, really good stuff.
That's like, that's, when we were first out and doing probably the most stuff, like around those records, the Destination records. That was between, I guess, 06 and 09. Those came out. So like, I get that, because in the interim after that, we were like kind of on and off, and it became easier to tour out of the country than in the country. And Adam, the drummer, he basically for the last 10 years, he hasn't lived in LA. So we had to organize that. He lives in North Carolina now. Yeah. But, so yeah, no, I get that. Those are like kind of the core records of the band, which we still play. When we play, play a chunk of stuff off of them because they're just the songs are fun to play.
Yeah, yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I am stoked for these new songs though. They're I think people will like them, and it's going to be like they're all apocalyptic songs. The record's going to be called End Credits.
Now you said that this is probably the last thing that Graf's going to do. Is that true or?
I think so. It's just harder to do stuff. Like I said, like we recorded that stuff in June of 19, and it's it kind of got parsed out into different releases, but it like I don't know. I mean, we were talking about in full disclosure, in December of 2023, it'll be 20 years since the first show, and we are touring with the idea of doing like just a gnarly last show on the day 20 years from our first show, and just having it be like so stupid, because every record release show we would have like a graffle and we would have like a bunch of movie shit. We were like thinking of like doing that with like an intermission and have people dress up and just have like these crazy graffles and like have like the record release for this EP be that, you know, like just do something stupid. We toured in Mexico in June, and that was awesome. Like it was cool to get out because it had been since maybe July or August of 19. The last tour was in Europe then, but I don't know. I don't know what else to do, honestly. Like there are a million places to go, but like we've been so kind of scattered in the last couple of years that it's hard to play as a normal band anymore. To like, there's one of our friends plays drums for like live shows because when Adam's away, but it like, I want to do it as something that's like, would still be a normal band. It's hard for me to like back up off of any band and do it like just every now and then. Yeah. So, but also it'd be cool to like I don't ever want any of them to just like fizzle and be like, oops, well, you know, several years ago was the last show. You know, I want it to be intentional and purposeful. Yeah. If that is the case.
Yeah. Now what's
similar with
Oh, go ahead.
What was that?
Go ahead.
I was going to say similarly with Ghostland to some degree, because Ghostland hasn't played since December of 2017, and that's because Neil, the bass player, he got hurt pretty bad at work, and he was like recovering for a couple years. Yeah. So we did this like live session thing in Jack's studio, and Jack played second guitar and Neil played bass, Neil from Ghostlimb, and that was the first time we had played together, Neil and I, in a couple of years since he was recovering. So I don't know, we talked about in the interim, like a record came out, the last Ghostland record, and we're just trying to figure out kind of what to do. I would like to play again, but I don't think we could ever go as hard as we did before with that. I mean, that was always a little bit less than Warlock. We would do like tours together or things like that. I think as a whole, Ghosty played maybe like 230 shows or something so far in its existence. I would like to, if we decide to, I would like to have like also a purposeful last thing if we were going to do that. But also, I would be cool just to get together and play again. Also in the interim, Alex, the drummer, he has like a son that's like less than a year. You know, like a lot of stuff has happened in the last couple of years, so it makes all that stuff harder, obviously. Yeah.
Well, that was my next question was going to be the status of Ghostland, because you pretty much just answered it.
I saw it coming.
Yeah, yeah, you did. And of course,
that was I don't know. I love all the bands are kind of different things for me. You know, Gorlock's like a sledgehammer, and Ghostland's like a stiletto dagger to me. You know, they're like, one's really blunt force trauma, and the other one is a little more pointed, and it's like purpose, perhaps. But like, I'm like a historian, so all that stuff. Ghostland is kind of like the more like I don't know, discipline based interest to me. Like Neil, the bass player, is he does a lot of ecology stuff. He does conservationist stuff. He's done a lot of like environmental science things. He's like a landscape architect major, so like his stuff comes from his songs come from that angle. Mine come from like the history, politics stuff. And Alex was like a geography person, so like his stuff comes when he would choose to write some songs. It would so that stuff was always about different things. And really, when Warlock was at the beginning like hyper atonal, Ghostland was just like a way to play heavy melodic stuff for me in a different way. Because I've always loved melodic stuff. I just didn't want to play like European metal anymore when I was younger.
Understandable. I mean, I still have this bad boy too.
Oh,
I've had this for a while.
That's 2008.
Yeah, and I still have this too as well.
Shit, that one was that's 2006. That one came out. That's funny because if you look inside that one, all those pictures, like all the images in that record, that briefcase I have in my garage, like we took pictures, like those are all pictures we took in my mom's front yard.
Oh, no kidding.
And like the dog paws on the back are our dogs. It's like those are. I remember because one of those pictures looks like a bag of like Coke in the briefcase, and it was like flour or sugar or something. And we were in my mom's front yard, and people were just like walking by. We were taking pictures, looking at him like, just get out of here, fuck off. But
I wanted to ask, what was the thought process for Graf Orlock with all the love for the 80s and early 90s movies? Like, what was the thought process going into that band and all the samples used and the lyrics and song titles and stuff like that? Who came up with that idea? And obviously it ran for a long time.
Well, at first, it took a minute for like what did I call it? The institutionalization of cinema grind to like really get where it should be. Between the end of As Hope Dies, that other band, and like Warlock, Adam and I had a bunch of like fake bands that we were just like mess with at practice. And one of them, originally the idea for Graf Orlock was that it would be like a grind band, but there'd be no snare. It would just be toms, which is like fucking stupid. But then we were talking about it, and we recorded like 8 songs because we had one of the fake bands was called Vehicular Manslaughter, and all the songs kind of like would have samples, and one of them was an Office Space sample that was like longer than the song. And it was and then we thought about it, and I was like in a Borders or something. I was looking at a book about cinema, and I was like, oh yeah, Graf Orlock is a sick band name, because initially a lot of band names, like if you're talking about like Ulcerate or something, you're pretty sure it's like a death metal band or a metal band or something.
Yeah.
Dying Fetus. Yeah, okay. I get it. I get what that sounds like. To me, that it didn't mean anything like in sound, like now obviously I associate our sound with it, but like I was like, oh, that name is sick because it's from Nosferatu, and so when we started the band, we always wanted to have samples, because the previous band we were in, the joke was that I hated people talking between songs. So if you have samples, no one can talk between songs. Yeah. And when we started, no one sang. We played like 4 shows, and it was just samples and music. And then we decided that we would all sing. So everyone had to sing. And then as time went on, the way that after like the first, like demo or the first 2 things we kind of recorded, one of which became a split with Grayskull, the Backpack record, we decided that like that's kind of what it would be. So the titles were actually from the scenes in the DVDs of the movie that we were looking at. So a lot of those titles later on, like now there's no DVDs really, and there's no scene titles. So like as we got to like Crime Traveler and the other stuff in like 2014, 2015, like we started making the titles that like sounded like the scene selections to me, like kind of like overly verbose but highly descriptive, like the one we were talking about on the Flexi. And the way that the lyrics worked was that they were from the movies, but me and the other singer would both be different characters in
Yeah.
from the thing. So as time went on, it just became like really funny to. I mean, like a prime example would be uh, "Tactical Destruction," the Red Dawn song that from Destination Time Yesterday. Is like that song is like that movie was written by John Milnes, who did Conan, and it was like notorious kind of strange right wing guy. And like you take
Yeah.
those lyrics of like, the Midwest being stupidly invaded by Cuba and Poland or something, and you twist it around a little bit. It's like the shirts, like all the shirts are like a plot twist. Like I'm sitting in this practice space and I'm looking at the one that's like Kali from Temple of Doom, like decapitating Shogun and stepping on, like that type of stuff is always funny. So if you take the script that is like intensely Reaganite from 1984 and you make it like a critique of capitalism, that shit's funny to me. Like, and over time, I think probably, I mean, way more thought goes into this than people think. I mean, I'm certain that a lot of people think we're like shitheads, but there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and to me, it's super funny. Like, it's gratifying from our end. Even when we started the band, we're like, oh, let's have like our names in the band be a little bit off from our real names to confuse people, but also like no one can sue us for copyright infringement because Jason Schmidt doesn't exist,
Yeah.
So my email address is still jason@grafworlock.com, and I've known people for like 15 years that don't know if my name is Jason or Justin. Which
well, that's why
still
I asked.
Funny
What
to me
did
now.
you use? Yeah.
My Christian name's Justin. My Gorlock name is Jason.
Nice. Now,
yeah.
were all of you guys
Yep.
cinema buffs? Like, is that kind of how it evolved? You know what I mean?
It was just shit that Adam and I grew up on. Like
Mm.
I like always loved Arnold movies. I went and saw T2 when it came out, like the day it came out. I loved Predator when I was a kid. And it kind of just like once we started going that direction, it just fit. It was like, oh, it made sense to me, and it was all stuff that we liked. And it's not like people don't use samples or anything, like other bands do that, but it's kind of unique at how overzealous it was in regards to like even the backstory about being film students and stuff. Like that shit's just so funny to me. So for the stuff that he and I did over time, it was always just stuff we liked, and really it was all the stuff I grew up on. It was funny because like maybe 10 years ago we played a show and my parents came. Like every now and then, every like 5 years, or I would get my parents to go to a show, but they came for my birthday once, and like the two things that they said, my mom was like, oh, you guys are really fast, right? She said, I was like, thanks. And then my dad says, this is what I get for having the TV raise you. That's what he said.
you should have that sampled and put in.
I know.
Your dad saying that.
I just record him. But it's stuff like action movies are also particularly funny because if you're like have a critical mind in any way, shape, or form, it's like they're so stupid, like, and they're so reflective of like the bullshit kind of Reaganite 80s, and like that's the funniest part to me from like the political side of it. It's like even Predator, which is about like a galactic hunter, of course, it's like based on some like anti-Marxist like rebels thing in Central America. It's like while at the time in reality it's like all these death squads are being backed by Reagan, and like all the destabilization of Central America is happening. It's like placing these types of movies in those things, or like this idea of this like one-man army type bullshit Rambo stuff, it's like it's just so like grossly hyper masculine, but also like really like stupidly reflective of the dumb culture that is the United States. So like it's funny playing some of these songs in other countries sometimes, or like playing in places where like maybe there's not the commonality of those movies as much. Like you're not gonna like probably turn on the TV in Malaysia and see something like that on a weekend like you would here. So it kind of gets taken out of that context in a weird way in other places that it's also interesting. Or playing a song about Vietnam in Vietnam is like mega weird and meta. But I don't know, man. Movies are sick though. I guess that's the point. But even at work, because I teach history, it's my job. Like, I like to relate things to movies because people, you know, you can talk about anything for a long time and you're like, oh, like this movie. And you're like, oh, yeah, I get it. Okay, fine. You know, and then point out that just because you've seen 300 doesn't make you like a expert on Spartan history.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, did you ever run out of ideas for samples? Were you like kind of like scrambling ever, like being like, oh man, we have to find a good sample? Like you've done so many. Did you ever run out of ideas?
They kind of some of them got more obscure over time, and then the real twist was the Crime Traveler record in 2016, where they're all our own samples, and people will be like, what movie is this? Because there were 10 songs and 5 of them were related to like actual movies, kind of like fan fiction style, and the other 5 were about like actual events. So like Exxon Valdez and like Reagan being trying to assassinate Reagan.
Yeah.
So the like fan fiction ones were funny because people would be like, wait, this is like an Aliens sample from like what movie is this from? And you're like, well, it's not from a movie. It's from like some people I remember once we went and played some shows like for a weekend. We played like Atlanta and like somewhere in Alabama. We played New Orleans, and we were like, I was in my phone, in the notes in my phone, writing like what the words were going to be for some of those samples. Yeah. And it took like a year to make them and have people we know like help us make them, because there's like sound effects and shit in there.
Yeah.
But that was pretty funny. And then after that, we kind of did in the Exam record, we did some like newer related movies, you know, like we did some of like the later Alien movies and some other more obscure action movies. These ones of this new stuff, it's like the idea of this one was like post-apocalyptic ones, right? So there's like Children of Men, which is, I love that movie.
Yeah,
there's like a it's great. It's awesome. Mad Max song. There's a Waterworld song. There's like a Dread from like the Carl Urban Dread.
Yeah, so good.
And I think Snowpiercer is the other one.
Oh, nice.
Like the movie.
Yeah.
So
the show. Yeah, the show's not too. Like, I love the movie, but the show is bad to me. I couldn't get into it. I watched the first season. I'm like, yeah, I can't keep going with this show.
I got through the first season also, and then like whatever service it was on stopped having it, so I just stopped watching it. But I thought the movie was cool. I mean, like,
now did you see the full version? I know that they said like overseas there was like a longer cut, like maybe 40 more minutes. Did you see the like longest cut? Because I only saw like I did. Yeah, I always wanted to see it, but I don't think it's available in you can't get it here in the U.S.
I've just seen the one that that the standard one here, but I still thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, me too, definitely.
Children of Men is just like one of those movies that like it just like start to finish is thoroughly depressing, but great commentary, I suppose. Clive Owen's cool also.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Now, what's your take on current cinema? Have you been enjoying like some of the movies that have come out in the past like 5 years, and what's some of your favorite movies from the past 5 years?
I do like contemporary movies. I'm not like a hater. Like, I'm not an 80s purist, if you will.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of like I also love like Chinatown and shit like that, but there's
me too.
I really like Prey, the new Predator movie. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Yep, I thought it was good too.
And it was cool because it kind of like twisted the story around a little bit and made it less about. I like that the main character was like a woman, and it took it out of that like mode of previous before. It was interesting because it played on the idea that like like predators don't attack people that they think are harmless or not alphas, the predator doesn't attack her, but she's a dangerous one, that's awesome. I have to think about what had come out in the last couple of years, really. I don't there are definitely some movies I was really into. I think I saw something I liked. I think the last movie I saw was Bullet Train.
Did you like Possessor? the Brandon Cronenberg movie?
I did not see it.
Oh, you
I've
haven't
heard
seen
about
that?
seeing it. No,
It's
I
really
need
good.
to. I've been maybe since since the COVID stuff, since all this shit fell apart in the world. I haven't gone. I've only been to the movies a couple of times, and I've been like watching some stuff here and there. But
Yeah.
oh, Parasite. Clayton says Parasite was the best movie I've seen in the last 5 years. That's cool. I
Parasite
did
was
watch
really good.
Parasite.
Really good.
Yeah.
Parasite is good.
There's also some older stuff that I rewatched the other day. I rewatched Pan's Labyrinth for fun and some other things. Oh yeah, what the fuck? John Wick. John Wick is the one. I love the John Wick movies, especially 1 and 3. John Wick 1 is like, well, the last Warlock song, there's a John Wick 2. The last Warlock, there's a John Wick 2 song.
Yeah.
The entire premise that this dude had his like puppy killed by these pricks, and he murders like 87 guys in response. Like, I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know, he's just like incredibly tactical. There's a couple other ones that like that type of stuff. If any of the 12 people, if Liam can remind me of the good things that came out lately.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
last Blade
Runner
Runner
2049.
was good. Yeah, that was good.
Space Jam 2 was utter bullshit.
Yeah,
we have a Blade Runner
didn't even watch it.
2049 song on the last record. The last song is a Blade Runner song.
Nice.
With a synth. I really like that. That was good. The I don't have shit with Ryan Gosling. He's fine. I like Harrison Ford. I didn't particularly like the last Star Wars movies.
No,
but
me neither. No, me neither.
I like that he got himself killed in it, which is cool. I mean, I'm not looking forward to any type of ongoing Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah, me
of like
neither.
I actually just saw me and my wife and some people, we went to the Hollywood Bowl like 2 weeks ago and saw John Williams play. He does it like every year. He does all like the cinematic scores. I think that was maybe the 4th time we went. Yeah. 1 year, the like MC was Steven Spielberg, which is crazy. Oh, but okay. When this year he played like a song from the upcoming Indiana Jones movie, which is kind of wild because I can't imagine what that would be about. I imagine the Cold War, I suppose, but you know, like he's old as shit now, so yeah. It's just like we went. Gorlock went and played the Fest in Gainesville a couple of years ago. This would have been 3 years ago now. And when we were there, we landed and we went and did shit. Like we ate when we landed. We had like a red eye, and then we went to the movies. We went and saw Dark Fate, the Terminator movie. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. What is this? Yeah. It was definitely better than Genesis Weiss, but I mean, like, it's like the last couple Predator movies were like The Predator, the one that the Shane Black one. It's just so utterly self-referential that it's like just stop. You don't like. That's why Prey was cool. Even there was some merit about the one with whatever his name was that was in The Pianist.
Oh, Adrian Brody.
Yeah, the Predators one. There's at least Predators. There was funny stuff in that, and like the concept that there's like a planet that they're put on to be hunted. Like, okay, that's something. Yeah. But The Predator was just stupid. It's like an ultra like Predator, and like every other line refers to a previous Predator movie. You know, it's like it's just like the debate about one of my friends is here from Texas, and we were talking about the Lord of the Rings show and the new Game of Thrones show, and like how some of that stuff tends to be just like intentionally self-referential because they can't really ride on the story itself, so it has to like bring in all this stuff that people recognize. You know, that's kind of like being somewhat pathetic.
Yeah, too many Easter eggs like thrown in the basket, like when you watch it. Now, what was your take on Prometheus and Covenant? Did you enjoy those movies?
We actually have a Covenant song on the last record. I like the idea of expanding like the universe of that stuff. I'm not totally sure that I buy the whole like engineer's story and David testing on them, you know, like the Michael Fassbender character.
Yeah.
But I really like Noomi Rapace, like that was in Prometheus. She's
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah.
And I liked her in other movies. I don't know. I don't really have beef with it. I mean, it's definitely like there's stupid parts to them, but it's better than like Alien versus Predator or some shit, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Like exploring the xenomorph like origins is like kind of cool. Like Aliens 3 sucked. Resurrection's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens, the second one is my favorite movie of all of them.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's in prime territory of action movie. It's like 86, right? You have like Michael Biehn, you have Bill Paxton, you have like Janelle, who plays the super tough Marine. She's John Connor's foster mom from T2. They're like all these like sick characters, you know, and like it just takes it and puts it in like, I really like Alien, of course. It's like slow burn sci-fi, but that one is like more in my wheelhouse of the hyper stupid action movie.
Yeah.
I also liked I liked Prometheus. There were definitely things that could have been done. And Prometheus was definitely better than Covenant, I think. Liam here says, is it true Mac and Me takes place in the Aliens universe? Probably. My favorite thing about Mac and Me is how every time Paul Rudd would go on the Conan O'Brien show, he would get the people that work at Conan's show to like play that clip of the kid going off the cliff from Mac and Me. And like every time Conan would get so pissed. He did for like 15 years. Every time he'd be like doing PR for a movie. It's amazing. I've sent that to people in memes or in text messages for like years. This kid going off the cliff.
That's awesome. All right, let's get back to bands real quick because I don't want to keep you forever on here. I wanted to talk about Sweat. What's going on with that band, and how did that band form, and how did you get into it, and what's going on with that band right now?
We just put out a record in it's called Gotta Give It Up. We put it out in February 5th it came out. That band kind of started in, let's see, 19, I guess, 2019. We recorded the first, it was like a 7-inch, an EP, just a self-titled one that I put out in January of 2020, and it came out in April. It came out a couple weeks after the pandemic started, conveniently enough. And then the LP came out on Pirates Press in February, and those are some people that I worked with back in the day. I pressed a lot of stuff with them, and now they're doing different things with like the label, A label. So it was a try to see how that would work out, and they're a cool part to that. That band started because, I don't know, just playing different types of more kind of like rocker shit, classic stuff. I mean, from a guitar player standpoint, that stuff's super fun to play, and it's like more, you know, influenced by like, I don't know, Swami stuff, Thin Lizzy stuff, like even like type of Motorhead songs or anything like that. And the drummer in the band is Anthony. He's the drummer of Dangerous. So we played together since 2013 or maybe the end of 2012 together. And then, you know, on and off, I played a little bit less. I technically, I guess, quit Dangerous at the end of 2017, but have played on and off since then.
Yeah.
On different tours and stuff. And we did in 2000, when we were doing that Sweat 7-inch, we were doing some Dangerous demos, one of which this summer came out like just a single we put out. So that stuff is ongoing. I think they're working on a record now. But Anthony and I have played together for a long time, and the singer Tuna, we were all friends. And there was one weekend in maybe 2018 or the beginning of 2019 where Warlock was going to play in the Northeast. We played like Providence, Philly, and Brooklyn. And Kyle, the singer, like a week and a half before, he couldn't go. So she went and actually sang for Warlock for the weekend, which was like super confusing to people.
Yeah.
And then we came back and started that band because we're like, oh, let's start a band now. So we did an East Coast tour. We played some fests. We're playing some stuff in the Pacific Northwest coming up. We already recorded another LP. I don't know what we're going to do with that yet. We're recording a couple songs next week for maybe a split with another band. and there's a lot of stuff. I mean, throughout the pandemic stuff, I would just write and record demos of stuff like that. So we just never stop, and we practice every week. We have, so thus far the band's been a band for a couple years now, but we have like a 7-inch, an LP that's out, an LP that's I guess waiting to come out, and then other stuff we're going to record.
Nice,
So
nice.
it's active, and that's been kind of like the one that's been playing the most lately. Like Warlock is playing, we're playing a show on Thursday, and we're playing a show in a couple weeks, but that's like here and there.
Yeah.
Dangers has played here and there also, and then like I said, Ghostland hasn't played since December 17. Although I would like to play some if we can at some point. That's kind of like my child band, but yeah, that's been kind of my main musical focus the last 2 years is the Sweat stuff, and it's cool. It's just cool to do something different after so long and like focus a little bit more on what some people call songwriting, which eluded me for decades. Oh, maybe a part can go more than once in a song. Who knows?
Now, how did you get into Dangers? How did that work? And they were a band before you joined, and then you kind of joined,
Yeah.
and then you got out of it, and then kind of, like you said, you were filling in here and there.
Well, it's that band started, I guess, almost contemporary with Warlock, and that was Al's band. Al's a singer from they're from like the South Bay, so not too far from us, and we would play shows together, and I had all the same friends, and like a lot of the bands have overlapped in a lot of years. And in 2007, there was a Graf Orlock Dangers Ghostland West Coast tour before I was in Dangers, and then in end of 2008, I joined Dangers, and then we did a lot of stuff for like a long time. And so I wasn't on Anger, that record from 2005 2006, but everything after that I was on. We toured a lot in all those years, and Warlock and Ghostland, or Warlock and Dangers did a lot of tours together. We did like Australia and other places. And in 2017, at the end, December, I was like getting out of it and trying to do other stuff. But then there was like a tour in 19 that I did. Actually, Jack, that records stuff, he's the guitar player now. So he was supposed to take my spot. But then at different points in time, like in 2019, there was a tour with Touche Moore and Jerome Stream that was like cool. So we both played guitar in it. And then this summer, there were supposed to be some shows in the Northeast, like it was Rochester, Toronto, and Boston before the Sweat East Coast tour. And he couldn't go because he had like a big session. So I went and played, you know. I don't know. It's like when the record's done, I'll put the record out. And, you know, it's like, but I was trying to focus on some other things like Sweat and other, just to change up a little bit, because that's at its core, like Ghostlimb and Warlock, I guess Sweat, a mixture of people in Sweat are my bands, and Dangers I came into after it was formed.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, I was a part of it for a long time and doing a lot of things, but in order to make it its own thing, it always has to come from someone else who's Al. So, yeah, a lot of that stuff was a mixture of our sensibilities over the years, or whatever it may be. But it had to start with him, so it was a different thing than the other bands that started with me, maybe.
Yeah.
But I was, you know, we had toured and been in it, basically, you know, been involved for 14 years, and it's like we still talk, and obviously there's overlap with Sweat and everything else. And, you know, like they're supposed to maybe practice Thursday here at my house. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still involved. I mean, even if I'm not playing, I'm still going to be involved somehow.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Now, do you think that, like, the last Graf Orlock stuff that was recorded and the last Ghostlimb stuff, the Only Measure album, like, do you think that's, like, your favorite stuff? Because to me, it feels like you know what I mean? Like, it's some of your best stuff. Do you feel that way, too? And it's kind of, like, sad
Yes,
that Ghostlimb
hopefully.
is kind of in hiatus right now?
The Ghosty stuff was, you know, because of the stuff happened with Neil, it was kind of like forced hiatus, if you will. But that stuff, yeah, I feel like there are things in the mid-era of Ghosty that I go back, because there's really like, I don't know, 5 records, 5 LPs or something like that, if I'm right. And because we never really, we did like a 10-inch in 2009 split, but we never really did we never did EPs or anything like that. We just always did records. So
Yeah.
there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 LPs, which is ridiculous. But yeah, we always just wrote stuff, and I feel like I would have something in mind, or like some type of sensibility about what I wanted to do, like as a whole with the other records, or there'd be like a theme of some sort.
Yeah.
Like in Infrastructure was like the maroon one. I was more like trying to tap kind of like some Leatherface, Hot Water Music type of stuff via hardcore. And then later on in Confluence, which is the green one, is a little bit more metallic, but also a little bit DBD. I don't know, always with a little bit of like propaganda in there for me. But this last record was like, it was just kind of to me a little bit more unhinged. Like there was just nothing, there's no idea of, we just wrote songs. And to me, when I go back and listen to it, I think it is like, there are some things on, there's a couple, like 2 or 3 songs on every record that I really, really like, and I like playing.
Yeah.
But that one as a whole, I think, is like a good realization of what the band probably always should have been to me, which is a little bit like thrashy, but also melodic in different ways, and like really have no convention about what it should be, which I like. It's kind of cool because it's like metallic, but it's also, there are parts that aren't, and it's melodic in different ways. And like there's in the 2016 record called Difficult Loves, there's like a really long song called Difficult Loves, and like I was kind of thinking about that more, like a more complex, like riffy song that was longer. The reality is that like if you compare one of those songs, or like this really long song on this last record that's called After Virtue at Rest, which is about, it's like referencing a John K. Samson song from the Weekend, basically. I love the Weekend, like they're one of my favorite bands. If you take one of those songs that's like 6 minutes long, that's basically like half of the first record, you know, like that, what was like 14 minutes, 11 songs, just like, but you can only do that for so long if you want to expand. So like those, maybe it changed that way. And like that's a little bit more gratifying. You can breathe a little bit more, but it's still, the songs are still pretty jerky, if I could say so myself. So yeah, I'm proud of that record. I wish, you know, we didn't play once on that record, you know.
Oh, really? Oh, so good. The album's so good.
Thanks. It came out in 19, and the last time we played was the end of 17.
Yeah.
So like, we couldn't really push it. I mean, maybe if we play again, we can. But I was hoping that people would hear that record, and then because I figured it was going to be the last one, I like wrote the book thing that goes in it about like the story of the band and all that stuff. It's kind of like, because there was never really any information anywhere. It would just be like, on the records be like, Justin, Alex, Neil, here's my email address if you have questions. You know, it's like, so I thought it would be cool to talk about where it's from, because a lot of times, even with Warlock, people don't get where there's no really clear trajectory of where the music's coming from, or like what we were trying to write, you know, which is kind of unique, I think, to be like, I wanted it to sound like this, but it turned out like this, you know, like, initially when I started Ghostland, I kind of had like a melodic idea of, you know, like almost along the lines of like tragedy. That's what I was thinking of when the band started, but like, it never went that way, because I like can't write D-beat songs very well, you know, so I ended up writing other stuff. But the melodic part was always an important thing to me, and like the lyrics are always super important to me. So yeah, I hope to do something, and I hope to get that record out a little bit more, because I'm proud of it. And yeah, answering the question, I guess, is that yes, I feel like that is the realization of that band, and I feel like this latest Warlock stuff is too. And it's taken a long time, and that's really the way you should feel. I mean, if you're doing it right. Like the Sweat stuff too, like the Sweat LP, I'm like really proud of that. And this new one that we just did, I'm like, I was just listening to some of the mixes. I have to like finish a couple of the solos this week, but like I'm also really proud of that. So I guess you shouldn't not like the records you put out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I say that because I mean I was in kind of an obscure band in New Hampshire, and I feel like the first like my first band that I was in that I recorded some real stuff on, that was like some of my favorite stuff, and then I kind of some stuff kind of got blurred for me, and then the very last songs that we were writing on my last, like the second to last band I was in, was some of the strongest stuff that I ever wrote, and it sounded wise, it was amazing. We never get to record them, so we just got like live videos of us playing live with
Was
them.
it was this
And
the
that's
High School Sweethearts band?
yeah, High School Sweethearts. Our last like three songs were like the most powerful stuff that like we
I don't
wrote.
know, like
And
sometimes that legacy is also cool. It's like I don't know. It's hard for me to decide whether like having just a banger ass last record or like having like back when there were comps, like having
yeah,
like, oh, the last thing this band did was this one like insanely killer song that's just on this comp that like that's all you get. Like you would like, if you want to hear more shit like this, start a band that sounds like it. Like the I don't know. Yeah, that's hard to deal with sometimes. I mean, even listening back to some of the stuff that you've done in like your output or whatever, your own discography, like I felt like in a little bit in the mid era of Ghostlimb, we kind of lost the script a little bit in some of the ways, just in like the like speed at which we were playing, and the riffs were like they just got blown out, they got lost. Like even when I like some of the stuff in the mid era record, just like a couple of songs I'll listen to and I'm like, I have to like think hard about what I was even playing when I'm listening to it to like remember what the part was. And some of the Warlock stuff at the beginning, maybe like a couple years in, got like before we started the Destination Time stuff, I feel like got a little bit samey here and there. I mean, of course it's cinema grind, so it's not like going to be widely varied, but just in that way, I guess, in response to the larger question, it's like, yes, the latest stuff, I always want to be the best stuff if you can, and I feel that way at least with these three bands and the stuff that's come out.
Nice. Yeah. Now, is there any other like style of music you'd like to play that you haven't yet? Like, I mean, is there something like style you would like to play in a different band, just on your own personal level? Per se, maybe like saying like maybe a black metal band, or would you like to play like an indie rock like band, or
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the stuff that I would play, like my interests in music that I would play, are at this point pretty much fulfilled by the projects that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like Dangerous is like a little bit different, like varied kind of weird hardcore stuff, and like Sweat is more like rocker shit, and it's like Warlock is the more metallic one, and Ghosty is a little bit metallic. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I like a lot of different stuff, but I don't know if I would like ever try to like play out like something that's singy. And I also, I mean, I have from time to time played in my friends' bands that were like more indie stuff. Like Elliot, the drummer of Touche Amore, has a band called Warm Thoughts. It used to be called Dad Punchers back in the day. And every now and then I would play with them, which was cool because it was more like the Weaker Than stuff. But I can't see myself like starting a band on my own like that. It would be perhaps too vulnerable. Although I would, I would remind you here that maybe I'd be down to do scores and stuff like that. There's something really funny is that some of my friends that are related to Decibel and stuff that did the Warlock video with us, a dude named Ken and Andrew, they do other film stuff, but like they'd asked me like, oh, can you do like a version of, you do like an acoustic version of like Motorhead's Eat the Rich for this like one scene. So I like recorded that, and that shit was like funny, but it'd also be cool to do, like more like instrumental. Like I like messing around with synth stuff. Like if I ever actually like try to do that would be the next step for me in the cinema grind world, would be like movie score stuff, or at least like doing some interesting things like that, or something pulled back a little bit less. I mean, guitar is like my key weapon of choice, but it'd be cool to like maybe do something that's not guitar-y.
Yeah, definitely. I'm fairly good friends with Nick from Daughters, and he's kind of dabbling in that right now as well, to, like working on scores and video game, you know, music as well.
He's a guitar player?
Yeah, he's a guitar player, Nick,
Yeah. So, that's cool.
That's awesome. I mean, if you can get into that, that would be great.
Who knows? I mean, that's a little bit of like a learning curve, but it would be, I don't know, just to like mix up a little bit and do different things. I mean, I'm not going to stop being in bands, of course, but like these, even if we don't really, I mean, at some point you have to be self-aware that you don't maybe need to make more records, you know, like if you have, just out of curiosity, like a month ago, I was talking to someone at a show and I was like, oh, I should make a discography of my own and just see like what records that I did. And there ended up being like 13 Warlock releases of different kinds. And, you know, like overall I think there were 40 different releases since maybe 99. But like, I'm not sure that after this EP that the world needs another Warlock record. I mean, there's like fucking 80 songs or something, you know, like, you know, I mean, there's 80 songs probably of which there should have been 40, you know what I mean? Like, so we'll see. I mean, the bands can still be bands without putting out new stuff, I guess, but we'll see.
Nice. All right. Like I said, I don't want to keep you too long. So usually at the end of these discussions, I usually do a little rapid fire question for you. So you ready for some rapid fire?
Is this like an association thing I'm supposed to do?
It's all over the map, kind of. It's got some hardcore questions, maybe a little movie stuff, maybe a little. So, all right. My first question, like every first question is, all-time favorite New England punk or hardcore band for you from New England, up in my area?
God. Jesus. Come back to me on that one.
All right.
It's interesting because you just reminded me of like you reminded me of, I was thinking of when you talked about Nick, you reminded me of fucking Invincible and all those bands.
Yes, I mean that's in New England. That's Providence. I mean, a lot of people say like Drop Dead. Drop Dead. I've heard Converge. I've heard SSD. I've heard Slapshot.
I like more the idea of Converge. I think there's some individually. I love all of the parts of Converge minus the singing, but there's I was never like a big Converge head. I don't know. Yeah, you have to come back to me on that one. Keep rapid firing.
All right. My second question: what was the first punk hardcore show that you attended when you were young? Like real hardcore show, not like a Battle of the Bands type thing. Like a real hardcore show. What was your first one?
I went to a lot of like local things. I went and saw like in the mid-90s, Sick of It All toured a lot, and I went and saw them play quite a bit. Like right before and during when Built to Last came out, and they toured with like Strife, and who was from down here, and they toured with some other bands, and maybe some of those shows I went to. There's several of them. In terms of like punk bands, like I probably saw Propaganda every time they played since the late 90s. I don't know. But like a lot of older, some like more local stuff around. There's a lot of Orange County stuff going on at the time, but I'd have to think about it. And probably some of the bands are embarrassing, so I wouldn't want to tell you.
No, isn't No for an Answer from Orange County? Is that weren't they? Do you know that band?
Are they related to like they're related to like Speak 7-4 and some of those bands?
I think
I know I never listened to them, but I know like there's a heavy Revelation presence down here because Rev is in Huntington Beach, and my old roommate has worked for Rev for a long time, and I know a lot of people there. So there are a lot of those bands, and then I mean that was offset by like the Mascara, Hairdresser, White Belt, hardcore of the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Not for me, of course. I just mean existing.
Yeah. All right, I'll keep going. My next question: what was your all-time favorite show that you played? What was the most memorable one for you? Your all-time favorite show that you've ever played?
Oh fuck.
Or give me a couple. I mean, because you've been in multiple bands and
There's
you know.
I have a book of every show I've ever played in it, and it's getting close to 1,300. So I would have to think about that. But there were definitely some in like some weird ass ones in the middle of nowhere, or like back when Warlock started playing in like a gazebo in Redlands outside, or like just there's a spot that we played a couple times in Slovenia that's like right on the Adriatic, and you can play on the slide right next to, like, in this causeway right next to the water. I remember one time, maybe in 2009, maybe in 12, like the last note that we hit and the last Warlock song was like, dun, and like the singer just like hit the water,
Oh, really?
like that type of shit. Or playing in Vietnam was really cool to me. That was like of that tour in 2017. That was like, I don't know, it felt important in a way, even though it was just a hardcore show. It was like different given the trajectory of history in the United States. But mostly the ones that I think about are like out of town ones. But there've been some of my favorite. There's a spot in Anaheim that we've kind of grew up playing called Chain Reaction, and we're like the band they let play on the floor, and we've like played there a lot of times. And if there's a last show, it'll be there. And like those shows were always super fun, just mega stupid. If people want to watch you, they have to stand on the stage. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's funny.
Oh,
Or like,
awesome.
random Halloween shows. Like we played one Halloween show at the Che once in San Diego, and like we all dressed as ex-presidents from Point Break. Like that was funny. Playing with a mask on is like impossible. Also.
Oh, I can imagine. Jesus.
Oh yeah, we Al is just reminding me that Dangerous played in 2013 in like a Romanian Soviet furniture factory, which was like pretty crazy. And
Wow.
stuff like that is always super cool. Like in just some weird part of the world. I mean, it's not like Romania is that weird, but played on like a boat. Gorlock played on a boat in Belgrade, in like the river in the middle of Belgrade. Like, that's fucking weird. It's awesome though.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. How was Australia?
Australia's always cool. I think we did, to varying degrees, maybe 4 tours there between Gorlock and Dangerous, and we did one together. But we went, first time was in 08, 10, 15, maybe 3 tours. But it's always cool. It's like, in ways, pretty close to the scene here, but also it's like different, and all the bands are different, and it's like just a weird Thunderdome version of everything. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. My brother.
There was a memorable show in Sydney where they tried to like kick us out of the country because there were people floating at the show, and the the security guard said that like one of the other security guards broke his arm, and this woman like had a miscarriage because of our say. It's like
Oh,
it was amazing.
wow.
But we got out of it because like the old like he's kind of like a Jesse James of Australia, Ned Kelly. He's this dude in the 19th century. He had like a big beard, and Kyle, the singer Gorlock at the time, had a big beard, and the cop that was there to like decide if we were in trouble or not was like, "Oh, you look like fucking Ned Kelly." He's like, "Get out, you guys get out of here. You're fine."
That's awesome.
And I mean, we're there like not on a visa. We're there as like tourists, like basically effectively not supposed to be there. That shit was funny. Yeah. Okay, go on. Sorry.
My next question: what was your all-time favorite hardcore punk show you attended that you didn't play? Like you went to go see a hardcore show and you were,
there were a lot that used to be at like this spot in Corona called the Showcase, which I hated. I hated playing, but like I saw some shows there when I was like in junior high that were just crazy. And later on, in like around 2000, the shows were insane. There's like so many people at every show. I couldn't say. Oh, I'll say this. At that spot, Coos Cafe, I remember one of the bands that's like later than Born Against, but has members of it, and like later went on to play Untitled Chapter, was this band called Young Pioneers, and they're like a punk band, but kind of like they're like one of my favorite bands. Also, I love them. Also related to Veil, who I really liked back in the day. But it was like them playing. They played at this skate park on like a Thursday up in like Montclair, and we went and saw them play, and then they were playing that night at this spot Coos, and it was with this band from down here called Treadwell that I love. They're also related to like Neon King Kong and some other bands. They're like thrashy, but I remember like watching them Pioneers and like barely anyone watching them. I was like, oh, I love this. It's like great. And then when the other bands played, oh, the Locusts also played that show. I remember like looking into this room because it's this living room. I was like, maybe I was 17 at the time. And there's just, I look at this crowd of people mushed in this room and there's just like feet sticking up in the air, like floating like this. I was like, I just remember it being wild, but those things kind of stuck with me. Other ones, you know, like when you see bands a bunch of times, you know, they tend to get mashed together, some of the shows. Yeah. But back in the day, we had a lot of like really good, fun shows that were like wild with Comadre and stuff. We did a couple US tours. We did a Euro tour with them. We did like this is Gorlock. We played. I probably have seen that band. I've seen that band more than any band I've ever seen. Probably 200 times I've seen them play, you know, because of that stuff. Yeah. But a lot of those shows, especially back when we were both a couple years in, the shows were crazy. Like in like 07, 08, that's like when there are a lot of people going to shows all the time. A lot of people buying records. Like those shows are wild.
Now, were you going to Showcase in like the late 90s?
Yeah. From about the mid 90s on. Like when I was, I remember when I was in like 7th and 8th grade. So it would have been, let's see, 94, 95, 96. Into I graduated from high school in 2000.
Yeah, my the first band that I was in called Last House on the Left had members of Ukla the Mock that was on Life Sentence Records, and they played Showcase with, it was like a Life Sentence Records tour with I think Decontaminate played and Grimlock played, and the band was Ukla the Mock. I didn't know if you ended up going to that show at Showcase because I know they played there.
I don't think I saw that show. Yeah, I don't think I did. But that's pretty interesting. Life Sentence Showcase. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. Probably know a lot of the same people
somewhere.
somewhere.
It reminded me they played at Showcase. Yeah. All right, I'll keep going. Obviously, we're talking about movies. Our love for movies. I always ask this. What was the last movie you watched?
Wait one sec. Can you hear me still?
Yep, I can hear you. Do you want me to ask that again?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
No, my things just died. I can hear you. The last movie I watched was Good Will Hunting yesterday.
Nice. Nice.
The last movie I saw like in a theater was Bullet Train, like a week and a half ago.
And how was that? How was that?
It was fun. It was pretty entertaining. It was a little bit long, but
yeah. I feel like every movie is really long now.
Yeah. It's Christopher Nolan's fault.
Yeah, I know, seriously. My last movie I watched last night was I watched Thor: Love and Thunder. That was my last movie I watched.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel.
Yeah, it was all right. I always ask this too with movies. What's your all-time favorite horror movie? I don't know if you're a big horror movie guy, but what's your all-time favorite horror movie?
I would get like probably yelled at for this, but I love 28 Days Later.
So good.
Yeah, it's like, and I don't know. Yeah, that's probably the one. It's like apocalyptic and it's like kind of freaky. It's funny and kind of shitty that like the entire premise is that animal rights activists started this plague. But aside from that, I like the movie quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Now, is there any horror movies in the past, like say 5-10 years that you've enjoyed? Like what's some of your favorites?
I don't know. I don't really. I don't seek them out so much. I know that again, I'll get shit on for that, but it's like I don't like the jump scare shit.
Yeah.
So much. Like I like the stuff that's creepier, I guess. I mean, in some ways, that's why I like the sci-fi creepy stuff, or like the elements of Alien or something like that. You know, it's like it's like eerie. I prefer that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I can't really say. I will say that.
Have you seen Hereditary, that movie?
I need to watch like that entire slew of movies related to Hereditary.
Yeah.
Because I'm like way behind on that shit. I will advise.
Yeah, that's definitely probably one of my favorites from the past like 5-10 years.
Yeah, I'll have to. I've been meaning to, but I've been behind.
Nice. I'll keep going. I'm kind of like a '90s boom bap hip hop guy too. You know, I went to a billion shows, recorded a bunch of hip hop shows and stuff like that. And I always ask this: if you've been listening to hip hop at all, what have you been listening to?
The only stuff I listen to is stuff from the mid '90s, really, because I don't know. It was a lot of my friends listen to a lot of hip hop, and I never, from like a guitar perspective, like I get it rhythmically, I like it, but I was like always, I never got really deep into it. Like I like Jurassic 5, I like Diggable Planets, I like some of that stuff. And I saw Jurassic 5. They're like from LA. I saw them play before,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't like. I will like dip into it every now and then, like Dead Prez and stuff like that. I like, but
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you about like new shit. I know what it is, and I know some of it is around is stuff that people talk about, and every now and then I'll like try to listen to. Like I try to listen to the new Kendrick record or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't know. My brain, I need to like try harder. Because my brain always goes to like what the guitar is doing. Even rhythmically, I like drums. I've been trying to learn how to play drums, but it's like I have to get used to that not being a main element, I suppose, because that's where I usually start writing songs, and that's the way I think about them.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, kind of limiting in that regard, because I appreciate it. You know, I don't have beef with it at all, but I also don't want to come off like pretending that I know a lot about it, or I know a lot of the stuff by name, really.
Yeah.
And like I'm aware of what some of it's about, but I couldn't name records.
Yeah.
So much.
Nowadays too, it's a lot of people are. I mean, the younger people are getting into drumless beats in hip hop, which drives me crazy because like I need that drum sound in hip hop beats, and
I mean
I
that's
think
the core of it, right? I mean it's like call and response type of shit.
it's just so bad. I feel I can't even listen to it if it doesn't have like a a snare or like some sort of bass to it. You know what I mean?
Logical.
I just don't get it. But yeah, I always ask that just because I'm like a '90s boom bap guy, and I got one more question for you.
Okay.
My last question on rapid fire is, what are some of the favorite songs you like to play live?
Fuck.
In your catalog.
When it comes to Warlock, there's like I have a list of songs right here, so this is helpful. Like some stuff off the 2012 LA EP. I like 50 Year Storm, Tactical Destruction, some stuff like Game Time off Destination Time Tomorrow. On Crime Traveler, like the last song is an Alien song. They're like bangs. This song about Exxon Valdez and Crime Traveler. The stuff that's fast, usually. Planet of the Apes song off of that last record. Ghostlimb, I haven't played in a while, but there's this song, some shit, I'd have to think about that. The dangerous stuff, I mostly like playing the fast songs.
Yeah.
And then the sweat stuff.
I'd have to agree with this person right there. Captives of the Thuggy is like probably my favorite song of all time.
Yeah, that song is mega stupid.
So good though. It's so good. So good though.
When we play live, when we like finish the set with the Jurassic Park thing, we don't even play the beginning of the song because the entire song was written just to like predicate that using that sample. So we don't I don't even bother. Just at the end of the set, I press the sample these days. But there's a lot of Ghostland songs and a couple of Sweat songs, like the first song on the record, and those songs, all those songs are fun to play because they're different. But yeah, a song off Doombox, Job Hunt, it's fun to play. Yeah, who knows?
Now you're saying if like you had the last show, for a 20-year span, from show to show, is the set list going to be a tough thing for you to cut down to? You know what I mean? Like get down to
we would probably just play 2 sets. We would have like a set and then a movie intermission and then another set. And probably, I don't know, I mean, it would be pretty fun. Like I said, it would be, if we do it, it's going to be stupid. And there probably won't be other bands to play. And there'll be a bunch of dumb stuff like that. I mean, in order to just please us, we probably have to play a lot of songs just to like get the ones out that we wanted to play. I mean, even in the set of songs I'm looking at that we had from Mexico, it's like 20 songs.
Yeah.
So and that's ends up being like, when you actually play 15 of them in a set, that ends up being like half an hour.
Yeah.
Or so. So I don't know. It would have to be probably 30 songs to cover all the stuff we wanted to play.
Yeah. And lastly, I wanted to ask, is there anything coming out new for Vitriol Records? Like, do you have any releases that are coming out soon, and anything you want to plug before we go?
There's one. There's a new LP for Daisy Chain, which is a band with the singer Warlock and a couple of our friends that every now and then I play guitar in. Also, it's more like kind of heavy rocker shit. And then the Warlock 7-inch, I think it's going to be a 7-inch that's going to come out at some point. If Dangerous ever does a record, the Dangerous Records. If this new thing that we're recording next week will be like a split with a band called Negative Blast. If that comes through from San Diego, and that will be split, I will put out as well. So there might be some represses and some stuff that I need to do that I've been out of for a while. So that's maybe more the thing right now. But yeah, still going. Not dead yet.
And that Graf show that you're playing soon, that's with Portrayal of Guilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thursday,
yeah.
Thursday, yeah. Where's that at? In case anybody that's from around the area doesn't know.
That's in Long Beach at no, that's in Long Beach at Caser on Thursday. Yeah.
Nice. That'll be a good show, definitely, for sure. Now, is Adam going to that show, or is the other drummer playing?
No, he's it's a Thursday, so he's in North Carolina still. And the drummer that plays live, his name's Cena. He plays in a lot of bands also. He's going to be playing. He's basically been...
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
He's basically been touring like since 2016 with us.
Nice. Now, do you... Calvin was one of the first singer. Do you see him at all?
He lives in Oregon, so I don't see him. But he was in the band for the first 4 years. Mm-hmm. It started without him, and then he came and he wanted to put out the first 7-inch, and then we decided that we were all going to sing, and then he started singing in the band too. So he was in the band until September of 2008. And then Kyle, who sings now, has been in the band since then.
Yeah. Now, did Calvin go on to do any other bands after Graf? Or
he was in a band called Children of God with Cena, the guy that plays drums live sometimes, and he was in quite a few other kind of like crustier bands. I don't remember what they were, but I'm not sure he plays anymore. But he's somewhere in Oregon these days.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to do this.
No problem. Thanks for being interested. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Seriously, I've been a fan for so long and tried to scoop up as much merch as I could over the years and stuff like that. And,
if you're missing anything, let me know. I have a bunch of random shit. Maybe I could.
I mean, yeah. I mean, anything. I'm a collector of all that stuff. So, whatever. I could
definitely get you one of those flexies if you want one. I have like a group of them.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that. And like I said, I can Venmo you, whatever.
No, sure. I we'll talk about it later. I can send you.
Yeah, definitely. But I want to thank you so much, and especially on a Sunday too. Just having your time means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. And let's stay in touch, definitely.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, brother.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Bye.